historical materialism. Now, this can be said to be Marxist theory of social change, though actually Karl Marx never used the term historical materialism. Rather, what he talked about was material conception of history. What is material conception of history? Basically, Karl Marx tried to trace the history with the help of materialism. So, Karl Marx tried to trace history with the help of materialism, and this tracing of history by Karl Marx with the help of materialism is known as his material conception of history, which later on has been called as historical materialism, which is Marxist theory of social change. Now, in sociology, generally the thinkers try to do two things. So what the thinkers try to do? Thinkers would either try to see the reason of social change, reason of social change, or they would try to find out reason of stability or status quo. These are the two things generally the sociologists or thinkers basically try to do. Find out the reasons of social change or find out the reason of the stability in the society, or both. That is what they try to do. Marx has also tried to do that through basically materialism. So we will now try to understand this historical materialism, which I said is nothing but material conception of history. Now, to do this, to bring up his own theory of social change, Marx has used basically the ideas of two different thinkers. So we'll understand what these ideas are. Now, the first thinker he used is Hegel, and the second thinker he is going to use is Feuerbach. These are the two thinkers he is going to use. We'll understand why he uses these two thinkers and how he comes up with his own material conception of history. Now, according to Hegel, so we are trying to deduce Marx's historical materialism. So let's first talk about Hegel. Hegel says, according to him, history is a progress. History is a progress. Historically, if we are trying to trace, it is a progress. It is a progress of, history is a progress of dialectics. Dialectics. So according to Hegel, history is a progress of dialectics. Now, what are dialectics? Dialectics are nothing but two opposing ideas. Dialectics are nothing but two opposing ideas. So what is Hegel trying to say? Hegel is trying to say that history will progress with the help of dialectics, that is the two opposing ideas. When there are two opposing ideas, then only history will proceed and keep on proceeding throughout the history because of two opposing ideas. Now, what are these two opposing ideas? Now, here two opposing ideas, you need to remember two things. One, it is opposing as in conflicting in nature, but what is that is opposing over here? It is the ideas that is opposing over here. So it is the ideas that is opposing over here. These are the ideas that are conflicting in nature. So Marxist theories are also called as conflict theory. So what will Marx pick up from here? Will he pick up ideas? No, he will pick up the conflict nature. So from Hegel's thought process that history is a progress of dialectics, dialectics meaning opposing ideas, Marx picks up the opposing nature. Marx picks up the conflict. So Marx chooses conflict over here. Okay, this is what Marx has picked up from Hegel's idea. Now, let us understand what opposing ideas is Hegel talking about. So when you talk about the opposing ideas, Hegel is basically talking about Hegel is basically talking about thesis which will give rise to antithesis which will lead to synthesis. Okay, what is thesis? You come up with a theory that this may lead to that. That is your thesis. Now, every thesis will have an antithesis, What is antithesis? A conflicting theory. Okay, if you are saying X leads to Y, the antithesis will question by saying that X need not necessarily lead to Y, or X can lead to Z also, or in all the cases X may not lead to Y. So X may not lead to Y, or X may lead to Z, etc., etc. It is the conflicting idea or the opposing idea. So this was the initial idea, conception which was there, opposite to which will be antithesis, which will be the conflicting idea. And when thesis and antithesis combine, it leads to synthesis. Synthesis as in these two ideas would combine to give, synthesis is a new idea. So this can be called as new thesis. So this can be called as new thesis. And when new thesis will be there, what will happen? It will have new antithesis. It will have new antithesis. And a new antithesis will lead to a new synthesis. And new synthesis is what? Is another new thesis, which will again lead to another antithesis and another synthesis. And this is how the society will progress historically. Okay, so as per Hegel, the opposing ideas is leading to the progress of history. From Hegel, Marx picks up the idea of conflict, right? But along with conflict, Hegel said it is the conflicting ideas. So Hegel gave primacy to ideas. Now, Marx did not give primacy to idea. For Marx, idea was elusive in nature. So Hegel gave primacy to idea. Marx did not give primacy to ideas. So Hegel said that it's the conflicting ideas which is leading to progress of the society. Marx said it is the conflicting nature which is leading to the progress of the society, but the conflicting nature is not in ideas. So then what will Marx talk about now? Marx will now take the help of Feuerbach. Marx will now take the help of Feuerbach. Why he will take the help of Feuerbach? Because according to Feuerbach, the idea is illusory. Idea is illusory in nature. It's an illusion. It is not real. It is an illusory, or you can say illusory product of reality. So now Marx is happy. Marx is agreeing with Hegel's conflicting nature and is agreeing with Feuerbach's concept that idea is actually illusory in nature. It's just a illusory product of reality. So what did Marx do? Marx juxtaposed means kept idea of Hegel and Feuerbach on top of each other. Juxtapose Hegel plus Feuerbach. Marx basically juxtaposed Hegel and Feuerbach and came up with that history is progress of conflicting is taken from here, materialism. Instead of idea, materialism is taken by Feuerbach. Okay, so Hegel said that basically what happens when ideas change, when there are conflicting ideas, it will lead to different society. But Marx says no, it is not the ideas. whatever materialistic relationship exists in the nature, that actually give rise to the ideas. Ideas do not give rise to materialism, rather materialism give rise to the idea, is what Marx said, right? And with the help of this conflicting materialism, the society is going to progress. So let us see how the conflicting materialism will lead to the progress in the society. So conflicting materialism means, what do we understand by materialism? Materialism as in the production which is happening in the society, that is the mode of production. Now, mode of production consists of forces of production and forces of production, which can be called as FOP, and relation of production. Relation of production, that is called as ROP. So let us understand what are forces of production and what is relation of production. These two combine together to give the mode of production, and the difference or the conflicting nature of mode of production will progress the society forward. So what are forces of production? Forces of production are nothing but the factors of production in an economy which is there will lead to production in the economy. So land, labor, capital, all those things are your forces of production. Then what is relation of production? See, relation of production is basically the relation the two different classes have in a society. As per Karl Marx, throughout history, there have been only two classes. And these classes have been haves and have-nots. That is why Marx is a very simple sociological thinker, because he always talks about two simple classes, two different classes, the haves, the have-nots. There would be some sort of relation between the haves and have-nots, either let's say master and slave, feud and serf, or let's say capitalist, bourgeois and the proletariat. So these two are the haves and have-not classes which will have relationship among them, and that relationship is nothing but relation of production. Whereas the different forces, different factors of production that is required is nothing but the forces of production. Okay, and these two together combine to give the modes of production. Now Marx says, according to Marx, whenever new source of energy is invented, forces of production tend to develop. So there would be a society X, it would have some forces of production which is there, plus some relation of production which is there, which together combine to give the mode of production of that particular society X, right? But what happens in a society, a new source of energy may be generated. New source of energy may be generated. Now, what is this new source of energy that is generated will do? This new source of energy that is generated will give rise to new forces of production. Will give rise to new forces of production. That is NFOP. It will give rise to the new forces of production. Now, because of it, will the mode of production change? No. Right now, it will not change. This new forces of production which has been initiated, this will basically develop. Marx says this new forces of production will develop in the womb of old relations of production. Okay, it will still develop in the womb of old relations of production, OROP. So old relation of production. So what will be the present structure of the society? As I said, this society X had forces of production plus relation of production which gave rise to mode of production, but due to the presence of new source of energy, due to the presence of new source of energy, what will happen? New forces of production will develop, but old forces of production is also there. So the society will consist of this will sort of look like forces of production plus new forces of production have developed, and they will develop in this relation of production only. This relation of production is now becoming old relation of production, and this is your mode of production. Now, what will start happening? This new forces of production have been initiated now. So earlier this was 100% forces of production. Now this would become, let's say, 90%, and this 10% of new forces production is existing in the society. Now, slowly and steadily, what will happen? This new forces of production will keep gaining momentum. So it will become 20%, this will become 80%, this will become 30%, this will become 70%. So what is happening? New forces of production is gaining primacy, is gaining more power, more momentum, and it is gaining more momentum not in a new system, but in the old relation of production itself, right? And a time will come when this will start tending towards 100% and this will start tending towards zero production. So a time will come when new forces of production will start to basically dominate. And when new forces of production start to dominate, when they were not dominating, they were just initiating or developing or maturing, they were able to mature in old relation of production. But when new forces of production began to completely dominate, then old relation of production will not be able to sustain this new forces of production. So what will happen? This remember this, what I asked you to remember: forces of production plus new forces of production plus relation of production. This is the present society X. Okay, this gives rise to mode of production. Now this new forces of production is dominating and our old forces of production is withering down. So what will happen once this dominates completely? New forces of production dominates completely. It was dominating within the old relation of production. So when not dominating, initiated within the old relation of production, now when it starts to dominate, old relation of production will not be able to sustain them. Since old relation of production will not be able to sustain them, here you will find new relation of production. So what will happen? This goes out, this goes out, this has dominated here, new forces of production, and this cannot sustain new forces of production. So new relations of production has been formed, and new forces of production plus new relation of production would give rise to new mode of production. And this is what the society X would presently look like. New forces of production plus new relation of production give rise to new modes of production. So what has changed? How has it changed? Earlier it was forces of production plus relation of production gave rise to mode of production, but due to new energy, new forces of production came in, it developed in the old relations of production, but later on when it was dominating, old relations of production were not capable to sustain it, so old relation of production also changed into new relation of production. So this earlier society of this presently becomes what? New forces of production plus new relation of production give rise to new mode of production. So this gets changed to this, and this is how society or history progresses as per Karl Marx. And he has traced the different societies in the economy with the help of his conception of materialism. Which are the histories he has traced with this method? First things first, the very first society is the primitive society. Primitive society. This was the very beginning of the society. Then from primitive society, because of this change in new forces of production, new relation of production giving rise to new mode of production, it became ancient society. then this ancient society will also change and become feudal society, right? Feudal society, we'll see each and every one in detail. Then feudal society will further give rise to capitalist society. Marx calls the capitalist society as the worst form of exploitation present is in the capitalist form of society. And then after capitalism, finally communism will prevail. Before communism, there will be a step of socialism, but ultimately communism will prevail. So this is how Karl Marx traces the history or historical materialism or his materialistic conception of history by tracing the progress of different society because of the changes in forces of production and relation of production, which gives rise to change in the mode of production. Now, how each society was and how it has changed due to what reasons, we will see each one of them in detail. So we'll understand what these different societies are all about and how they have changed. So very first is the primitive society. Now remember that out of these 5 societies, Marx has considered primitive society and this communism, society with communism, to be egalitarian in nature. This also has been considered as egalitarian. So the primitive society as per Karl Marx was egalitarian, but then certain things changed and it no longer became egalitarian. It changed into ancient society, then ancient society changed into feudal society, and feudal society changed into capitalist society, and the exploitation kept on increasing as per Karl Marx, and finally this exploitation will get over, and finally the society will again be egalitarian when communism prevails. Okay, so let us understand the different societies and how they have changed. So very first is the primitive society. Now, how was the primitive society? In primitive society, man was a hunter-gatherer. Man was a hunter-gatherer, basically hunting every day, gathering every day, food, clothing and shelter. Like the lion, lionesses, tiger, tigress, what do? They hunt every day, or they hunt whenever they want food. That is exactly what human was doing at the time, hunting and gathering. So hunter-gatherer, that means what? Every day, if you are, whenever you want food, if you are going to hunt only at that time, what does that mean? That means that, boss, there is no surplus. No surplus. The existence is basically hand to mouth, basically subsistence. Not even farming is there. This is even before farming. Afterwards will come subsistence farming, wherein you grow as much as you need. But before that, there is no farming also that you can grow and keep for some time and relax. No, every day you are hunting and gathering, and there is no point of surplus over here. And since there is no surplus over here, therefore society is equals to egalitarian, because there is no surplus. Everyone is eating what they are requiring. So whoever needs whatever, they are getting that amount. End of story. No surplus, no conflict, no inequality, nothing. Hence the society is hence the nature, or you can say the nature of society is egalitarian. Now, what happens after this is, after this, human beings basically learn to do agriculture. Okay, and that is why this primitive society will change into ancient society. And in ancient society, what is the relation of production? The relation of production is that of master and slave. Master and slave. So this society gets converted into this, and the relation of production is that of master and slave. Why master and slave? Because agriculture has started now, right? But humans have still not utilized animals in agriculture. So in agriculture, basically humans or human power is used in agriculture. And that is why the have class, the class that had land and all for agriculture, the haves became powerful and the have-nots became the slave and used to do all the work of tilling the land. Right. Now what will happen? Remember our theory, new energy will be there. When new energy will be there, new forces of production will be formed and new relation of production will be formed because of that. So after ancient society, you will have feudal society. So in feudal society, what will happen is, see, ancient society, master and slave. Now, by the time feudal society came, man learned to use animals for agriculture. So using animals for agriculture is what? New energy. This is the new energy which is there, which will give rise to new forces of production, which will include the animals. Now, since new forces of production are there, it will start developing in the old relations of production. But old relation of production will now be hampered. Why it will be hampered? The old relation of production consisted of master plus slave. Now the slave's work is being done by the animal. So do you need the relationship of master and slave to still be present? Of course not. Initially it would be there, but later on when the society matures, when the new forces of production mature, new relation of production would be formed. This relation of production would no longer be able to cope up with the new forces of production. Hence, new relation of production would be formed. This new relation of production would be that of feudal lord and serf. And this new relation of production plus new forces of production will give rise to new mode of production. And the society has changed to the feudal society. Why? It all started by utilization of animal for agriculture, which can be considered as a new energy. This new energy will lead to new forces of production. The new forces of production will initially develop in the womb of old relation of production, but old relation of production will not be able to sustain it because there is no need of master and slave now, because animals are not now doing the work, as a result of which new relations of production will arise, which will give rise to new mode of production and new society is formed. After feudal society, what happens? We are utilizing animals. Now what will happen is man starts to utilize machines, and machines you can buy through cash, money. So money has now become very important, and this is nothing but the capitalist society. Capitalist society. So capitalist society, what will be the relation of production over here? It will be the bourgeois and the proletariat. The bourgeois are the haves and the proletariat are the have-nots. The bourgeois own the forces of production, the proletariat are the labor. And now the things are derived from the machines. Since machines are there which requires cash and money, the thing is this machine is what? This is the new energy. Now this new energy is going to give rise to new forces of production, different equipments, etc. Now this new forces of production will develop in the old relation of production, in the womb of old relation of production, but old relation of production will not be able to sustain it, right? Because now you need cash, now you need money. So the present relation will be changing from feudal lord and serf to the bourgeois and the proletariat. This will be the new relation of production, which will hence give rise to new mode of production, and this new mode of production is happening in the capitalist society. Now, capitalist society, as per Karl Marx, is the most exploitative in nature, right? So from primitive society, which was egalitarian, we went to ancient society, master and slave. Then we went to feudal society, lord and serf. Then we came to capitalist society. So the degree of exploitation has kept on increasing. Now Karl Marx says, finally this capitalist society will get converted into communism. Communism, which will again be an egalitarian society. Simple. But how will this happen? How will this happen is the question. So let us understand how this will happen. So in capitalist society, you have the bourgeois and the proletariat. Now, bourgeois are the haves, proletariat are the have-nots, right? So, bourgeois are the haves. So, they decide what to produce, how much to produce, how to produce. They decide the fate of the product, right? Proletariat neither decides what to produce, neither decides how much to produce, neither decides how to produce, neither decides the fate of product, and cannot even relate with the production or the produce that is there, because of which the proletariat would be alienated, right? The proletariat is alienated. The proletariat will then be polarized. They will unite against the bourgeois basically. At the same time, they will be pauperized, meaning they will become poorer and poorer. They will become poorer and poorer. They will be polarized, they will be pauperized. Now, Marx has always maintained that there will be only two classes. So what will happen, why I am saying that is because some of the bourgeois will also feel alienation. Why? Because at one particular point of time in the capitalist society, only the big capitalists will survive and the small capitalists may also lose their businesses. So once you lose the business, once you do not have any mode of production, once you are not the owner, what will you become? You will also become the proletariat. So bourgeois can also get alienated due to the market forces and will join hands with the proletariat. So proletariat will get polarized, more and more people, homogenization, pauperization because of poverty, and when this happens, then this will lead to what Marx calls as the revolution or the class struggle of the proletariat against the bourgeois. Revolution or the class struggle of the proletariat against the bourgeois. Now, in this class struggle, the proletariat will be winning. Why they will win? Because of huge amount of number. Majority of them would be the proletariat, and hence this revolution will lead to proletariat victory. Now when proletariat are victorious, your capitalist society which was there, it had what relation of production? Bourgeois and proletariat, right? So now the proletariat has won, bourgeois are gone, and now this proletariat would form a communist society. That means communism is going to come, which will, and this society is going to be egalitarian in nature. So in this particular manner, your capitalist society gets converted into communism. Now, what is the relation here? Here, there is no master and slave, no feudal lord and serf, no capitalist or bourgeois and proletariat. Why? It is in the form of the very primitive society, communism. This is egalitarian. Now, why is that so? There is no distinguishment between the haves and have-not. There is no haves and have-nots. Then what is there? The entire forces of production, etc., is community owned. The entire community is owning the various things that are there. So it is community owned. Since it is community owned, there is not going to be any conflict, and this society is going to be egalitarian in nature. So this is how Marx traces the primitive society, from the primitive society to the ancient or the slave society, to the feudal society, to the capitalist society, and then finally to communism. And very important point to remember, when the society started, it was egalitarian. Now, these societies are basically exploitative, and this communism will again be egalitarian. So this is known as Marx's conception of materialism, which in your syllabus is given as historical materialism. Given as historical materialism. All right. Thank you.